Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Umoja Circle. My name is Keith Smokey Johnson, and for those of you who are new to the show, the purpose of the Umoja Circle is to correct errors where errors are found and to introduce facts where we find that so many people are working on fiction when it comes to who we are as people of African descent. And also, as a black man in this country, I've always felt that I have a personal obligation and a social responsibility to express my thoughts as much as I can on what it means to be black in America. That's why I do this show. And the topic that I'm going to be talking about today with my guest, who I'll introduce in a little while, is based on this book right here that should be coming up on the screen. It's called The Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. It is written by a great scholar who is a social scientist, Dr. Joy DeGruy. And one of the aspects of this is that the basic of the book is to say that, and one thing I love about this book, which I have in my library at home, is the fact that you notice that it says post-traumatic slave syndrome, which is kind of similar to what we might be familiar with for soldiers and other people who go through a trauma called post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. And what the thesis that Dr. DeGruy is bringing forth that I love is that she is saying, and also other great psychologists like Dr. Naeem Akbar, Dr. Wade Noble, these are black scholars who focuses on the trauma of being black in America. She said that after 246 years of enslavement, that's from 1619 to 1865, okay, that's institution of enslavement, and then another 100 years of government-sanctioned apartheid. We always associate apartheid with South Africa, but no, America had an apartheid system that is called Jim Crow segregation, okay, and that's from 1865 to approximately 1965, a little bit after the Civil Rights Bill was signed. So that's over 300 years of an oppressive system. And the post-traumatic trauma that was done, trauma, T-R-A-U-M-A, is a process that overwhelms the psychology of individuals. We as human beings can deal with trauma, stresses, on a normal basis. We could deal with the stresses of, say, going into the military and the stresses they put you through in basic, or the stresses of having to deal with the household or single parent. The human being can deal with this type of stresses. But there is a process that all psychologists and psychiatrists and all other students of the mind knows about, and that is the process of trauma. And there's no student of the mind anywhere on this face of the earth who would deny the power of having a traumatic experience occurring in an individual. Now, before I go any further, I would like to introduce my guest. There should be an image of her coming up, and this is my guest, Dr. Uchenna Umeh. She is a board-certified, Nigerian-born pediatrician. She did her residency at Howard University Hospital. She has 30 years experience in the field. After her residency, she went to, I think it was Lancaster, South Carolina, where she had her own private practice for 15 years. And if that wasn't enough, this sister also joined the Air Force, where she was the lieutenant colonel. She also was a commander at Maxwell Air Force Base, and also here in San Antonio at, I presume, Lackland Air Force Base, and it has to be Wilford Hall, my old stomping ground, where I stayed for 13 years myself. So there's something in common. And not only that, this sister is she's currently the medical director and CEO of Dr. Lulu's Youth Health Center. Her patients lovingly call her Dr. Lulu. She's also a best-selling author and an international keynote speaker. And with that, I would like to welcome to the Umoja Circle Dr. Uchenna Umeh. Welcome, doctor.
Thank you so much, Keith Johnson. Thank you so much.
You know you call me Smokey. Everybody do.
Thank you so much, Smokey.
Um, Now, I hope my intro to this topic that I think is a necessary topic. It's a difficult topic, but it's a necessary topic because of the distortion of the character of who we are as people of African descent that was permeated through enslavement and reinforced through the apartheid system of Jim Crow segregation. And you can't have 246 years of rapes, children being sold, lynchings, and men being castrated, whipped, women being brutalized. And also there's the book that I just discovered called Enslaving Apartheid, talking about the experiments that were done to black people,
Eugenics,
and not come
yes.
and not come out of that without counseling. You know, and the trauma of that, and how we internalize that oppression. And as an expert in, you deal with psychology also of your patients. They're young patients, but they're also human beings. Can you expand on the process of trauma and how it affects the individual in the long term and generational? Can you explain that a little bit for our audience?
Yeah, I mean, on the granular level, just on the baseline level, you have hormones that get released in your body.
Correct.
I mean, they're called
Fight or flight,
yeah.
yes.
You have adrenaline, you have cortisol, they are good for temporary.
Exactly.
Know, there's a monster around the corner. Oh my goodness, should I go? Should I retreat? Should I surrender? What am I going to do? And that's like, for that moment, the monster is around the corner. That's it. But if the monster is everywhere,
All the time.
all day, all the time,
as it was during that time,
then of course at this point is no longer for protection. Yeah, it's no longer for protection. At this point, it's damaging. It damages your cells on the granular level. It damages your mindset, your thinking. Your whole body is constantly in fight or flight. Like, you're constantly agitated. That's kind of what it is. And I can only imagine what my ancestors and all those who came before us, how they felt on a daily basis, leaving their homes every day, assuming that I'm never going to come back. My son is going to get lynched. My daughter is going to get lynched, raped. All the things you listed. And yet, not one day do you have time to. You get traumatized for 1 week and you need to get therapy.
Exactly.
Imagine getting traumatized for
saying what you just
generations.
Said, you
oh
just
my God.
reminded
of course.
me. You just reminded me of what I heard one time about people during 9/11. You got indirect trauma, it's called. You know, people think that the trauma not only have to happen to you personally, but you could get traumatized in an indirect way. What I mean by that,
proxy, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, if I watched the guy jump off the building, which I did, I saw people jumping off of the building. I needed therapy because that's not something that you see every day.
Exactly.
And that's like one moment. You know, I saw the plane hit the building.
Exactly.
That's traumatizing on its own. I mean, it's like, why was that? You can't unsee it.
And the process, and if you had to, you got people who are in therapy today who can't even get on a plane because of what they saw on 9/11. So, yes. It's established that soldiers, you know, who are being diagnosed today with PTSD. When you were in the military, you saw, and I see people when I go to my VA apartment, brothers and sisters or other military members who were in the Korean War or who were in Vietnam. Vietnam battle of 1968 was 51 years ago. But people today, they're still having night sweats,
yes,
nightmares, still unable to sleep.
To function. And you know, because I speak about suicide, of course I focus on children, but as a pediatrician I focus on the youth. But suicide on every level, every body, because I speak about suicide, that much more of a problem, because here we have grown men, because they were in the war moons ago.
Yes.
We have their family members because they were incarcerated, because we forget about that. You know, my son went around the corner to the corner store and he's stopped by the popo. He's traumatized for months because of that. His mother is traumatized.
Yeah.
No, not a no, no, no.
Oh, you're talking about
me
in general.
as a black woman living in America with very hostile. And now you don't have to go to the corner store. You just stay in your house and someone comes and shoots you.
That's traumatizing.
I saw that on TV and I'm traumatized. I don't even live in Dallas. Imagine the people that live in that neighborhood. Imagine their family members. Imagine the aunts and nephews and cousins of that woman who was in her house. I mean, it's like, that's just one thing. Imagine generations of that to all the people. So the definition of racism is an act that affects the entire group of people.
A collective mind.
It has to affect the entire race.
Exactly.
Not just one person.
Thank you.
Not just me do this to Smokey and it affects Smokey and his kids. No, it has to affect Smokey, everyone that looks like Smokey, dresses like Smokey, acts like Smokey. That is racism. So you can't have reverse racism that oh, I'm racist to one person that is not of color and therefore, no, that's not, I can't. What I do to one white woman cannot affect the entire race of white women. And that's what we need to talk about.
I'm glad you understood that racism, when we talk about today, that those type of traumatic reactions are affecting us as people of African descent today. If I'm a black man right now who is a mature black man and I'm driving my car and a police officer's car is behind me.
Passing. He's minding his own business.
Any black person who understand what it means to walk in this skin.
Yes.
You see, one thing we got to understand that most white Americans, or most non-black people, have a cerebral definition of what it means to be black in America. Everybody
we have a heart. I'm glad you said cerebral, which is brain, of course.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, without the heart, even the brain cannot function.
Thank you.
We carry it in our heart.
Thank you.
The 4 chambers in the fibers, and my heart beats black. And as a mother of 3 black men, or I like to call them boys to men, or my tres hijos, when my son goes to walk the dog every evening, I say, son, make sure you come back. It's a very spinal level thing that I say. And one day he said, Mom, why do you always say I should come back? I said, because Trayvon Martin never came back. It's not a simple thing for me as a mother of 3 black men. And I had a guest on my podcast recently who is a white male who said he had never thought about the fact that he can wear his hoodie. He's never, ever thought about the fact that he can wear his hoodie and just walk about and it's like business as usual.
And you know that statement that you made has been spoken by black women through their black sons and daughters for generations and generations and why you think, when we were brought over on those enslaving ships, those slave ships, okay, the trauma of that journey was alone was bad. Then you come to this alien land with a totally different culture. You got disconnected from your Igbo culture, your Ghanaian culture. You got disconnected from your Angolan culture and all the things that made us who we are and our connection and the hundreds or thousands of years of historical knowledge of how we shape our young, how our rites of passage. And then we were disconnected from that and we only brought over here for our labor, not our mind.
Our brains,
And the fact that we are doctors like you, lawyers, going to college today, to me is a testament, of our greatness today.
Resiliency of the black person. We are so resilient. I guess I say resilient, you say resilient. We are the people that keep coming back and keep coming back. You can't get all of us. We have staying power.
And that's what we got to teach.
Level. And it's important. And let me paint a picture for you.
Sure.
I'm glad you said that. Imagine, and I had this discussion with someone recently, and you know, I was born a Catholic, I was raised a Catholic, but now that I'm 50, I said to myself, let's unpack this. A white man comes into my home, takes my child as a slave, and then say, oh, by the way, my religion is not good. Here, take my religion. Or rather, he takes my child and gives me his religion and says, his religion is better than mine. He takes my arts, my craft, takes my son, changes his name, changes his mindset, enough life out of him, and then he wants to tell me, oh yeah, what you have is not good. Your hair is not good. Nothing about you is good. But when they spin it around on them, then it's supposed to be good.
Yeah.
I mean, what level of mindset mess up is that? So the fact that black people keep coming and coming, I thank God that I was born black every day.
Thank you.
Because I couldn't be any other color. I wouldn't function right.
We have a unique situation that separates us from a lot of people here in America. You know, there's this image of white America when you got the third or fourth generation Hungarian who came through the Statue of Liberty, right? Ellis Island in the late 1880s and 1890s, and people of the dominant group's persuasion would say that, you know, we came here by our bootstraps and we pulled ourselves together, not knowing that there was, again, this racism.
It was by choice.
Thank you. And there was a system in place that was meant
to receive them
based on the color of the skin.
And the funny thing about that is, and I tell people, like, my last name is Umeh. The full name is Umeh. It's got 13 letters. I shut it into Umeh because my father shut it into Umeh. Now, my family, they've all gone back to the full Umeh. I just kept Umeh because it's on my paperwork. But the thing about it is, my last name is 4 letters, and I have people who say, oh, your last name is Uma?
No recognition.
They don't want to try. I said, ma'am, did you do kindergarten? Did you remember how to sound out the reason I say that is because if your name is Romanowski, I will give it a try.
Thank you.
I will say Pelzinski in a minute.
Things,
I will try. I need you to try. So it's all part of the system of trying to, can I just call you ma'am? No, you may not call me ma'am. You may call me Dr. Umeh if you like, because that's the name that I was given. You're not going to come. This is not the days of Kunta Kinte. You can't change my name anymore to Tobin. I have a name and I carry pride. My name has generations of people that came before me. That name means something. It actually means, it has a meaning. My grandfather was named Umeh because he was an only son. So when he took the title Umeh, it means the chief whose children refused to come. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
He was an only son. His father had only him. So his father's name was me because my title is the one who children refused. Kids said, no, we're not coming. That's the way they look at it because he only had one son with many wives, yet only one son.
I'm glad
so
you
it's
brought
so
that
powerful. The name means so much. We don't just name our kids. We give them a name that has a meaning. My name is Uchenna, means God's will. That we're going to have a daughter because, of course, Nigeria being what's the word now? Patriarchal society. It's all about having boys and men and kids. And when I came as a first daughter, they're like, okay, well, it's God's will that we're going to have a daughter. You know, so we have meanings to our name. So you're not going to not say you know what I mean? Like, it means something. You can say that, or we can stay here until you figure out how to say it.
I'm glad you said that because I have another friend that I just met. His name is Nana, and he's from Ghana. And
that's a Ghanaian name, and that's another thing about Africa. When you say the name, I recognize where it's coming from. Yes,
he said he mentioned that there is this naming ritual.
Yes,
that it takes like 10 days.
7 to 10
days.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, and what they do, you get the elders involved.
Yes.
And the elders would look for familiarity in that baby.
Yes.
And they named the baby based on
something.
On
something
what
powerful,
like the ancestor coming back.
Yes.
I see great grandmother's eyes, or I see great grandfather's look, or something. But you know, even though the ritual of naming is an ancient thing in African, in the motherland's culture, it's no different than us taking a swab
and doing a
DNA, and then finding out that your DNA is from your grandma.
You
got or you got the eyes of your grandmother, grandfather. We had to catch the cerebral again. We do it by science.
Yeah, we
in Western.
Africans
understood it hundreds of years ago.
Before.
And
the
we got this connection.
The seat of civilization was Egypt, for goodness sake. This is Africa.
Africa.
And yet they tell us that we were uneducated and we're not refined. And who said that? Look at the native Indians. I take them as an example all the time. The Native Americans, they are just like Africans. They believe in spirits. Like this cup has a spirit. In Nigeria, we believe that the knife has a spirit. Everything has a spirit.
Yeah, the divine presence and everything.
When I was named after Udaku. Udaku is a lady who, her kids see me, they're older than me, but when they call me mom because they believe that I am their mother reincarnated.
Exactly.
It's a big deal for us.
And DNA is showing us that these bodies are reincarnation of the continuation of family
life,
DNA.
yes.
Now, the spiritual experience might make you unique,
of course,
Uchenna,
yes,
or Smokey.
Yes,
but the body, the
body, the mind, the soul
came from
somewhere.
The process
yes.
of DNA.
Exactly.
We all carry the mind of those who came
before
us
all day. And let me say something, because we're talking about trauma, so we don't go too far, because
I
can talk about Africa all day, but let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Talking about trauma, you hit the nail on the head when you talk about DNA and trauma.
Thank you.
Well, I have something for you. Have you heard about epigenetics?
Oh, yes,
before?
above the genes.
Exactly.
Above
epigenetics is the process by which I, a mother who has been traumatized, can pass my trauma through the DNA
Say
to
that
my
again,
son.
because we want to make sure people who are listening to this and who are left-brain European culture, because when we're talking about Africa and slavery, the first thing you are told by people who think they were educated, I call them miseducated, is,
of course,
why are you dealing with something that happened 150 years ago? And that has old, and that's the cognitive dissonance breath there.
Of
but
course.
I brought the expert here to validate what I found in my studies in epigenetics, which is just it's just coming into being recent.
But you know the beautiful thing about knowledge? Knowledge is evolving. It's constantly evolving.
I tell my kids knowledge is power every day.
It's power, but it evolves, which means if we thought the earth was flat and now we know the earth is round, we cannot unthink it, because at this point, well, whether you like it or not, the earth is round.
So continue on epigenetics.
I'm saying the same thing. Whether you like it or not, there's epigenetics. At this point, you can't deny it anymore. There is epigenetics. The process of passing down trauma from generation to generation to generation. And until we look at that trauma and make contact, acknowledge it.
That's what I'm talking. That's why we're having
before
the discussion.
We can move on. That is why there was a study on the 14th of October 2019 that showed that African American children, teens, and young adults have a higher rate of suicide than the rest of
trauma. That's why we're having this
discussion. It's unaccounted for trauma.
Yes.
My
I'm
child
glad you said
is carrying my pain. If I'm pregnant with my son and I get domestically abused, my son will feel the pain. Isn't that what happened in the Bible when Mary went to visit Elizabeth, and then Elizabeth's baby, or was it Jesus, in the stomach jumped for joy because, or was it Elizabeth? Elizabeth's baby jumped for joy because the baby recognized that the Lord is in the stomach of that woman. Babies have spirit. They have knowledge. They are born with so much. In Nigeria, babies are revered. They have ESP.
The answer's coming.
They have major ears. They come out smart. They are not talking, but they are smart.
Yeah.
A baby will cry when the mother is sad. Why? Because the baby knows. Yes, absolutely. 9
months in the ankh, as I call the mother's womb. But that's with the scientific name is epigenetics.
Epigenetics. Now we have a name for it.
Exactly.
We already knew about
Thousands
it.
of years.
We've known it.
Yeah. Epigenetics. Just like PTSD, there has a name for it. Yes. But soldiers been having PTSD problems for as long as there's been war.
And it's funny that people. Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say that people only think PTSD because of war.
No, it's not.
I can feel PTSD because of you. We're going back to saying I saw a man jump off the building on 9/11.
Indirect
I have
trauma.
PTSD because I can't unsee that. I had a woman one time whose daughter was in a car wreck, and the car wreck beheaded the girl. And the mother held the head for hours. She was stunned beyond movement. Like she was just frozen. Traumatized.
That's traumatized.
You can't unsee that. You know what I mean? But that is trauma.
That's trauma.
And I don't even know all the things that our ancestors
saw.
What they saw them beating up your son, tying to the rope and flogging him until he passes out. And then you tell me that that woman is okay? Or his sister is, you watch your own sister getting raped repeatedly. You tell me that that man is okay? Are you kidding me?
And look how they shape the narrative in this science. We don't even know. When we talk about Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings, I know. My point is that Sally Hemings was the half sister of his first wife. Okay, that means that Sally Hemings' father and raped her mother. Now you can imagine a black woman, an enslaved woman, who have to carry the child of rape.
I know.
Now, this not happened on occasion.
Yes, it was repeatedly.
Over and over and over. That kind of trauma was put on black women because you did not have a voice in your own free will. So we don't look at Sally Hemings like we say, well, she was his lover. Did she have a choice as an enslaved? Did she have a choice?
Exactly.
As an enslaved teenager.
Exactly. If you ask me to date you and I'm like, I don't know, let me see if I like you. Let me, I'll think about it. You're wooing me. And like, you know what, I think he's, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna date him.
You have a choice.
I'm happy. But if you take me by force, that is not anything good.
And you in a system that says he has power
over you
by law.
By law.
By law. If you were a 12-year-old white Southern plantation kid, you had more power to tell a 40 or 50-year-old black enslaved person what to do. And why did you have that power as a 12-year-old? How many people would listen to a 12-year-old today? No. But that 12-year-old by law had black codes, slave codes. You had a society, you had a military that would back him up
or show her up. And
that's why racism.
And that's why the little girl who say, Emmett Hill look at me funny or something, and then Emmett just gets lynched. You shoot, and then you ask questions later after the kid is dead. You lynch him. It doesn't make any sense. And yet, we're supposed to just go with the flow and just accept that, yes, everything is okay. Oh, slavery is over. We're done with it. Business as usual. That is not fair on any level.
And you got to understand that slavery was a double-edged sword. Not only did it traumatize the victims of slavery that look like us.
Oh, no, I know where you're going.
But the white population. Yes. You have to go into denial.
Exactly, and suppress your own. And that's why, and then when it doesn't work, you throw the Bible at them. And then my problem is, what are you doing? I told you about.
We got less than 30 seconds of this. But the fact is that we're going to stop right here for now. But that's why we're going to be doing a part 2. Because as you can see, the kind of information that we're talking about and this topic of post-traumatic slave syndrome is why I'm having this conversation. And I'm glad to have this dynamic sister on this show. So until the next part 2, peace, Hotep, bye-bye.